I want you all to be reminded and also know that this is something that you can do at any point in time, even when you're by yourself. One of the things that I remind some folks that deal with anxiety is that although everything else is going on around you and it's taking place at that moment, there's sometimes some things that we can do for ourselves just to remind us that this is just the moment, right? And it doesn't take away from what's going on, right? Because what's going on, what you're feeling in your body is real. What's happening in that moment is real. It is valid. No one can take that from you. But guess what you can do for yourself? You can do things just a little bit different. So for some of us, as we breathe differently. We dealt with this thing called COVID. We had this thing that was a pandemic that was taking our breaths away. For some of us, we've been in situations where we felt as if we just couldn't breathe, as if the oxygen was being sucked out of the room. And the benefit is that right now, for those of us that are present, we've been doing this thing called breathing the entire time we've been on this call. I just want to invite us to do it with a different intention. I want us to take deep breaths when we feel like we need to take deep breaths. I want us to be reminded that sometimes when we try to take a breath that's a little too deep and we choke up on that breath because it was a little too deep, I want us to remind ourselves that we don't have to work that much. We don't have to work that much. We have everything that we need, and we can just do this for ourselves. So I invite us to be intentional in this moment. And I invite for those of us that have water to drink it and to pour back into yourself, because what you just poured out right now could have been a lot. And the old people used to say that they want for their cup to runneth over. And the only way sometimes that can happen is when we can do that for ourselves. Sometimes we can't rely on someone else to pour into us. You'll hear me say things like, I'm thirsty. And I'm not just thirsty because I need to drink something. I'm thirsty because I've poured all of myself out into this moment, into this cup. And I've allowed someone else's cup to run it over while my cup goes empty. But guess what? See, when we look at the cup as the vessel, and the vessel then becomes the body, we can pour into ourselves as much as we need to. And right now we're using this example of water. But I want to remind us that we're also pouring into ourselves as we breathe. And sometimes when all of the world is doing all of the things that the world is doing, we can take a second and we can stop. And we can breathe. We can take in all of the stuff that's going on in the outside world, right? We can take in all of the things that are happening right then and right now. And we can inhale. And we can exhale. And we can do these things with us in mind. We can do these things with us in mind. We can drink our water with us in mind. We can breathe with us in mind. And guess what? We deserve to be selfish with it because we don't drink water anyway. So why not in this moment be selfish about it? Sit there and say, you know what? Listen, baby, listen. The light bill is due. They done sent the pink notice or the red notice, the disconnect notice, okay? And guess what? Ain't nothing gonna change by tomorrow if it ain't gonna change. But what you can do for yourself in that right then moment is you can just stop and you can breathe. You can stop and you can pour into yourself. And need nobody else for that. And need nobody else for that. And need nobody else for that. Some of us have come through things that people will never be able to imagine or even live in. The old folks used to say that if you could wear my shoes, could you walk a mile in them? How about, baby, let me tell y'all something. They couldn't put your shoes on and walk a few feet in them, okay? So understand something. You have walked into something that people, my father told me before he died. He said, you have done something that people will never do. He said people will lay down and have the pastor do the eulogy, and everybody will cry, and they have done something that they will never be able to do what you've done. And I sit there thinking to myself, well, what is he talking about? He said you took a chance on your authentic self, and you believed in you. And I want you all to know that each and every time that you breathe, with the intention of being selfish and saying, this is for me. That's what we do because we have that ability to do it. And I invite you to do it. At this moment, what I want us to do is I want us to breathe. But as we breathe, as you breathe, I just want to bring up a few things. We talked about those that fell victim to violence. And some of us, many of us, may have been those folks. And so I want for those of you that want to feel this connection, because sometimes we have a disconnect when stuff happens and we don't even know it. But I want for those of you that want to feel that connection, you can touch yourself. Wherever it is that you feel that you need to be touched. A lot of times I like to go here because I like to feel the pressure on my chest because I remember at one point in time when I could not breathe. And it feels good to feel my chest push up against my hands and remind me that I still can breathe. Amen. Some of us touch our arms because we just feel like we just need to be reminded that there's someone to comfort us. Some of us will wrap our arms around ourselves tightly, so tight to the point to where it hurts us to breathe because we feel like we need to be squeezed and reminded that we are seen. Some of us won't even touch anything and we'll just place our hands by our side because in the moment it's just not all right. It's just not okay. And that's fine too. But remember the one thing that you have that in this right now moment that no one is trying to take away from you, that you can actually do is breathe. Breathe for yourself because the trees that were put here by the universe provided leaves to cleanse the oxygen for you. Do it because when the universe was made, there was this decision for the grass to be greener on the other side and giving you the opportunity or the option to even see the greener grass. Do it because for those of us that believe in spirit, we can be reminded that you is spirit and everything great came from spirit and your great ass is amazing and you deserve all of these things. So continue to give to yourself as much as you can, be it by drinking some water or be it by breathing. Because in those moments, those are things that you are doing that are specifically for you, and you're going to do it whether or not you want to or not. I just encourage you to do it with the intentions of knowing that it's all about you in that moment. Now, as we prepare to go, we know that T-Door is approaching. So as we talked about those of us that have experienced violence, we also have to acknowledge the folks that we have lost. And one of the ways that I love to do that is to remind ourselves of the I am she and she was me, because it's not about gender. It's about a reality. It's about the fact that the I am is present and the she was past tense. And that if I am present and she was past tense, anything that could have happened to her could possibly happen to me. And living that and knowing that as a truth. So in this moment, I just ask that we come together collectively just to take a breath. Just to take a breath, because guess what? Those folks that were our ancestors that are no longer here, we just shared something with them. They took a breath too, using the same air that we are breathing right now. And we just did something to acknowledge them, to show them that we have connected with them in this right now moment. So again, I leave you all with the reminder of the invitation to breathe, even if it's just for 2 minutes, intentionally, specifically for you, because you're doing it already. To stop and just drink, whether or not it's water or your morning coffee or your tea, just for you. Nothing else needs to matter in that moment, because ain't nothing gonna change in that few little seconds. Ain't nothing gonna change. But if you can feel a little bit better, if you can pour into yourself, if you can be reminded of your greatness in that moment, I promise you it can be so much worth it.